You have 200 policyholders, and physicians, nursing homes. What other entities are insured by the JUA?
We have hospitals, and we have certified nurse midwives.
And podiatrists.
Well, if it depends on whether you want to include those as physicians. I mean, the podiatrists would argue that they're physicians,
Okay.
but I understand that you.
I won't enter into that argument today. So I will say this. I served 2 terms in the House prior to coming over here to the Senate. I hear a lot of complaints. I hear a lot of complaints from the hospital in my district, the 2 hospitals in my district, the many medical professionals in my district, nursing homes. I will say this. I'm not hearing complaints from any of those entities with regard to the inability to find liability coverage. Can you concisely explain why we need the JUA, right? Because in your answers to Senator Street, you said there are other entities out there writing this insurance. I would think if a situation is dire, look, when they can't get a license to practice medicine, when they can't, a lot of challenges medical professionals and hospitals face today, I hear from them. This is one issue I've never heard from anyone on.
Good.
I would say that the reason you're not hearing anything is because we're doing our job and we're doing it pretty well. Specifically to, your comment about, and I know that what the other senator was referring to is, are we in a soft, are we in a hard market? And we're telling you we think we're going in the other direction. But this is not an entity that is something that you only need for 200 people when it's a soft market, and then you don't need them at other times. There are situations where people who are coming into the market, for example, the Pennsylvania Medical Society has a program of basically retraining doctors who have been out for childbirth or whatever reason that they've taken time off and they're coming back into the market. A lot of the both self-insureds and RRGs do not take people when somebody's ready to come back to work. You have to wait until their new cycle is. I know at Jefferson, the CASAT group oftentimes does not allow people to come back in, so that what we do sometimes is we're providing the insurance for somebody who's coming back into the medical field, and without that, they would have to wait until a future time. There's a whole bunch of people with a sort of function as a locum tenens type situation for the hospitals, where the hospitals need hospitalists functioning in their facilities. And again, it's not like the open market has a great deal of capacity for this. When we were talking, we haven't talked about it too much here, but when we were looking at the Hahnemann situation where they were trying to cover about 1,400 residents, fellows, and even some attendings, we were quoting people, and how many days did it take us to do it, say on an individual quote, how fast could we quote them?
24 to 48 hours was our goal.
Whereas many of the places, NorCal, Med Protective, those places, they would be quoting and it would be multiple weeks. As a matter of fact, most of the quotes for that before the issue of the bankruptcy situation resolved would have been beyond the time in which people would have needed to have been insured. And officially in Pennsylvania, if you practice a single day without medical liability insurance, you are in a situation where you're practicing without a license. And in the pick and pie situations, we had people who retroactively, when it was determined that they had not gotten their tails covered at a certain time, were declared as having practiced without a license in the state of Pennsylvania. So we provide a lot of that type of availability. Now, there is no requirement that we have to give it at a better price. As a matter of fact, the insurers themselves, when it's a soft market, prefer it if our prices are higher, because they love to come in and then take the people who, they find, I'll say they cherry pick and sort of pick what they view as the better risk options, and we are then left with whatever else sort of would be available. So there is a need for the JUA, or I should say there is a need for an entity like the JUA, because that is what has been giving the stability to the market. When I say stability to the market, I came in right when I was a first-year medical student in 1975, when it was that first of those various peaks. And people were, in fact, leaving the state back in '75, and there were a lot of people who weren't staying. The people who graduated from Jefferson in 1975, because of what was going on, they were moving out. And Philadelphia does quite a bit of educating I'll say for the country. I mean, we have so many medical schools in Philadelphia that it's a situation where if we sort of aren't attracting these people back, what they refer to it as the brain drain. That happens in medicine, and it happened a couple of other times in medicine where people who were the better residents and fellows would then go elsewhere because the environment wasn't good, and that was 1975.
And you know, there are good statistics out there that indicate that a significant number of all the medical professionals in the United States at some point received training here in Pennsylvania because of the quality of our medical institutions. But so was that gap insurance that you were providing for these residents, you know, just a temporary insurance policy? And did you have to use your resources to cover those residents, medical professionals?
This was part of this bankruptcy. And essentially, at the time, there was no commitment to provide any insurance for those people that had been practicing, and it's called tail. It's the time somebody's practicing here, and the policy shuts off here, the claim comes in here, no coverage. So the concern was that these people that had been doing practice here would not have insurance.
And it's because the way the policies are written.
Yes.
So it's not like homeowners insurance where I purchase a year of coverage, I pay for a year of coverage, and heaven forbid something happens even after I sell the house, that policy is still in effect. So you're saying that, you know, for example, an OBGYN delivers a baby, there's complications, the facility closes, then the way that policy is written, they wouldn't have insurance coverage?
It
That's
depends on-
correct. It's called, that's
Claims
referred to
versus-
as a claims-made coverage. Essentially, the claim has to be made by the end of the coverage period in order for coverage to apply. And what traditionally happens in a claims-made environment is the person then, what they refer to, they call it tailing out. They buy a separate policy or endorsement to this policy here that provides for that retroactive coverage. And that's called tail. Once in a while, they can go someplace else and get somebody to write their coverage and provide that prior act's coverage.
So how many individuals were covered by this?
We were, I think we quoted 1,255.
Policies? And how many accepted?
Well, that's a complicated story. The bankruptcy hearing was yesterday.
Okay.
And we have heard that the bankruptcy was able in the end to finance it. But up until yesterday, there was not going to be any coverage. So you had all these people facing a potential problem. And this has been going on, the first date that it was supposed to expire was January 11th. And then they moved it to February 11th. Then they moved it to March 11th. But all this time, these people were being told that come this date, you will not have coverage. So we don't make a value judgment about whether this thing will get resolved or anything. Our main concern is that these people have a place to go to get insurance, and we made sure that they all had quotes. And we made sure that they had quotes in a very timely fashion. We've got 4 people, and I can tell you we worked around the clock to get those done. We streamlined our claim practices and everything else. Our name was with the medical society. We were in constant contact with people. We were in contact with the people that were handling the bankruptcy. We even provided a quote for the entire package of everything to the bankruptcy court as one of the potential options, and we understand that that formed somewhat of a basis of them determining whether the other options were viable or not. But We see that as offering market stability. Even if even if our offer wasn't taken, people knew that there was a place to go. And they came and they got quotes. And we had a lot of people saying, I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, but thank you for getting me the quote. And we got it to them quickly and effectively and efficiently. And we were told that our prices were in line with the market. Very few carriers were providing the quotes. A couple carriers provided a few quotes, and then they realized the size of the problem. And it's kind of like not in their wheelhouse. They aren't used to providing this type of insurance. If you think of medical professional as being a really small segment of the overall insurance market, which is huge. So medical professional is this small piece. Then tail insurance is another small segment of that, where you're providing coverage for something that happened here and you're paying for it way out here. Then within that, you have an even smaller segment of what we're talking about right here, where you're providing tail coverage for somebody that you didn't insure originally. So it's a very, very small segment of the market, and consequently, some of the carriers, although they offered a few quotes, were not willing to do big bulk quotes. And I was told by one of the agents that was trying to place the whole package that they were very selective of who they were willing to accept quotes from, because they were concerned about financial stability. Because you're talking $10 million, $11 million worth of premium, and if you have a smaller insurance company that, like some of the smaller risk retention groups, that could double their premium. And it could put them in, it would mean that they don't have enough capital to support it under insurance department regulations. So there are a lot of complications, and I've probably made it way more complicated than it needs to be.
Well,
but
it's been very insightful and very helpful in this conversation, so I thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.